Right. Well, again, my name's Travis Thompson. I am a therapist in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I specialize in working with couples around addiction and high-stress behaviors, mostly. So my days are not boring, ever. But I got into the field just out of grad school. I found a love for working with people who were really struggling. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I, as of next week, will start my official dissertation process for marriage and family therapy and an emphasis on addiction treatment. So, you might be asking, what does this have to do with codependency? Ooh, it's a lot. Now, here's the cool thing. The stuff that I'll teach you guys today is applicable to addiction. But I hope that some of you become incredibly uncomfortable because this stuff has to do with real life, okay? I teach this also at my little brother's high school, and it is so much fun to watch all of the people get really excited because there's a new person, and then go, oh crap, that's me. So, some of this stuff is gonna be new, some of it isn't, okay? For the stuff that is new, you should be wowed and absolutely amazed. Why? Because I came up with it. That one wasn't as good. We'll work on it though, okay? So we'll start off with some basics, some things you might know, some things you might not know, and we'll start making connections. A few things that are important. One, I work off a systems theory. If you're not aware of what that is, the idea is that everything works together. Everybody interacts with one another. This classroom is a system, right? If I just jump over the table and hit someone, somebody else is going to respond. In my home, if I'm having a bad day, my 2-year-old daughter is probably going to feel the effects of it. No man or woman is an island, okay? We all interact with one another. What I've found over the years is that relationships start to become predictive. You start to see patterns with people over time, okay? We're going to talk about that today and why it matters. And we're also going to talk about where it gets uncomfortable and where it comes from. The other thing that's going to be important is I talk about generational issues as well, okay? I'm not one of those therapists where session 2 we're going to teach you to hate your parents, okay? Stuff drives me nuts, okay? But the way that we grew up does affect us, and we'll see how that plays out over time, okay? If you have questions, and you're okay with it being recorded for the 5 people that will see it on my website, you're more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, like Dave said, I'll be here at the end, and I'm also, this is the shameless plug, my publicist would kill me if I didn't say this, but I'm selling books that are based for the partners and families of addicts. It's called To Those Left Behind. I wrote the whole thing, published it, didn't do the ghost writing. It was terrible to do, but I did it in 4 months because, again, glutton for punishment. All right, everybody ready to get started? All right, so one of the things that I hear most often as a therapist is, oh my gosh, my partner is so codependent. Okay, all of you are college educated, at least to some degree. I hope that you guys know what a prefix is. The beginning part of a word, the beginning part of the word codependent is C-O. Does anybody know what that means?
Company?
It involves 2 people. So when I have someone come in my office and say, oh, my husband, he's just so codependent, that means you too, right? Because you don't get to be codependent alone. Then you're just obnoxious, okay? So codependency involves a relationship. And the things that I'll give you will not vilify someone and make someone else the hero. We play roles that make sense, okay? Here's where we're gonna start. All right, now, I got a degree in psychology. If you make fun of my art skills, that's something you need to take up with Jesus, okay? All right, a lot of relationships can be explained in this. It's a triangle. Now, what happens for couples in relationship is that what we would like to do is have mutual vulnerability, right? This does not mean that we dump our issues, right? You're not vulnerable when you're yelling at someone, okay? Vulnerability is a sense of connection and the ability to be impacted in taking a risk, right? It's not vulnerable if I say I'm going to kill myself, because you're forcing someone to do something, right? Here's the thing. Healthy relationships often, well, all the time, work like a bicycle, okay? There are two ways a bicycle stays upright. These are both the wheels. The first way the bicycle stays upright is it keeps moving, okay? When a couple is interconnected, when they're talking, when they're engaged, when they're all of these things, the relationship works. However, when a couple is either no longer able or no longer willing to engage in vulnerability, and they still want to remain upright, they'll use a kickstand. Now, I represent this as a brake, okay? We have person 1 and person 2 here. Now, you might be asking, okay, so the kickstand part makes sense. What does that look like? And I'm going to give it to you outside of a dictionary. I write about this in my book, and my friends and family give me crap for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The two most obvious cases of a kickstand, or what we would call triangulation, in modern culture include travel baseball and child pageantry. Okay? Here's what I mean. When mom and dad can no longer rely on a relationship that they have, they triangle a child. Instead of them working on their own issues, they focus on the kid. Okay? How do I know this? If you guys have ever been to a competitive sports event, right? And it's middle school, but parents are losing their religion. It's this. If you guys have ever watched the train wreck of a show, Toddlers and Tiaras, as a family therapist, it is amusing to watch something I don't have to deal with. Okay? But that's another example where parents spend $5,000 on a 4-year-old for a prize pool of $500. It doesn't make sense, right? Instead, what's actually happening is these two people, unable to resolve, defer to something else. Okay? A lot of you have felt this in multiple ways. We get this in things like the hero child, where parents focus on their children, right? You're so amazing and you can do no wrong. It might not be sports, academics, spirituality, whatever it is, right? You also get the villainous child, right? Where it's, oh my gosh, look at how terrible you are. You're making our marriage worse, right? Or when the villain child starts doing better, they don't believe them. I know you're hiding something. I'm not hiding. Yes, you are. You're lying to me. The last role that we get is the lost child, which is mom and dad can't deal with their issues, so go away. Go to your room and leave us alone. Okay? Now here's the interesting thing. Those roles carry over time, but they start to teach us about ourselves and how we interact. I would argue this is the beginning of codependent behavior. Now you say, Travis, you just talked about 3 people and said codependent. I know, I am actually smart. I know how to count, okay? But you'll see something here that's interesting. You can have examples of kickstands that are not people. One that I see all the time is something like alcohol. When a husband and a wife or 2 partners, whatever it is, and they come in and they say, I cannot stand her drinking. How long has she been drinking? 10 years. Are you sure that you can't stand it? Because you've dealt with it for 10 years. I would argue you're getting something out of it that usually goes over like a lead balloon. But I'm right, so it doesn't matter. When these 2 people cannot actually engage in their vulnerability, they argue about the alcohol. It's your drinking. I drink because you do this. So instead of actually engaging, they go back and forth. And what ends up happening in these dynamics is one person will defer to this, but let's say person 2 still wants to engage with person 1. but there's a break. What do you think they're going to do? They're also going to defer to this in order to engage their partner. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard, we are never closer than when we fight. Now, here's where some of this isn't going to convict anyone. Things like breakup and hate sex are like the biggest version of this, where, oh my gosh, I can't stand you. Love me. Okay. Right? We're not dealing with issues here. Okay? This is just not how this works. Right? Or, I'll be the one to save you. That's coming in a minute. Okay? Two people can't connect. Now, you might ask, this sounds terrible. Why would anyone do this? Triangles are very stable, but they're not healthy. Dyads, the healthy vulnerability, are healthy, but not stable. They require work. Okay? Why do we engage in triangles? Because it's effective. I made a comment earlier of, you can't leave someone who says they're going to kill themselves. That's this. But I've deferred to this thing to keep you involved. I hope this is starting to click, because no matter what this is, and this is my personal opinion, and I'm right, so you should all agree with me, we're still working on it, all right? Here's the thing. No matter what the detail of this is, it's always one thing. Intensity. We see this early on. I went to a public high school, so for those of you that went there, this will probably make sense to you. Maybe private too. So I remember distinctly walking down the hallways of the school and seeing the band kids being overly affectionate, right? The theater kids were right there with them. Like, here's the thing. They feel very close to one another, but they're not. They'll say things like, sorry, I'll see you next period. I'll see you next period. Or how about this? You haven't texted me in 10 minutes. Were you looking at her? I know you were looking at her. Were you thinking about her? Uh-oh. I got quiet all of a sudden. What's going on? What are you thinking? What's happening? Why aren't we hanging out? That isn't a gendered thing, by the way. Guys also do this as well. Like, do you want to, what? You want to be with me? Are we going? What are we doing? Instead of actually engaging in our hurts and our vulnerabilities, we defer to this. As someone who works with couples a lot, this is so incredibly obvious, right? Where they start to do this for so long, they lose the ability to do this. And so when I sit a couple down in front of me and we push all of the crap out of the way, and I sit them in front of one another and I was like, so what's your fear? I don't know. Yeah, you do. I don't like it when she does that. Okay, yes, but you're not getting a divorce because your wife won't talk to you enough, you're not having enough sex. That's not it. They have deferred to this for so long, they start to lose this ability. Here's the thing, it's in there, okay? It takes a little bit of coaxing to get out. If you guys do end up working with couples, start using this, it gets real fun. Here's where this gets interesting, okay? You might say, okay, this is great, I understand this. We're going to defer this into two different things. The first is the family. Families do this, right? I already told you, travel baseball and child pageantry. Kids actually learn to repeat this pattern. Because if you have been triangulated in your own family system, you have a high likelihood of placing that triangle somewhere else. If that's what you've seen, this is how we connect to people, is through intensity or whatever it is, I'm going to do that too. And so what happens is I have people who come into my office and they say like, well, I just don't know how to connect. How? We start realizing that in their family unit, these were everywhere, right? The most obvious one that I see all the time is around alcohol. That's just because of my practice, but I also a foster parent. That's like in all of them. It's intensity in drugs or alcohol. And so you'll have people that come in and they've become so mired in this. This is the only way they know how to connect with people. So all of their relationships become intense. The way they hang out with friends and they feel close is going out drinking. That's the only time they feel close to people. Why does that work? They're not actually close to one another. They hate each other, right? Talk crap about each other. But this is it. Oh my gosh, we have so much fun together. Really? Because I hear you on Tuesday when you come in for session. You don't sound like you like each other. Or you'll have guys who come in and all of my buddies, we go out drinking. Really? Try to have an honest conversation with them. Tell them that you feel lost and you don't know what to do, and watch how awkward it gets. Right? So people repeat these things throughout their lives. Not because they're necessarily stupid, although if you look at the population data, some people are. Okay? You work as a therapist long enough and you'll think it. Just don't always say it. I did because I worked in a rehab. But you might be asking, okay, so this makes sense. I understand how we do this, but I'm going to add something on here that I think is going to open your eyes to your own relationships, to see the relationships with others, and most importantly, ruin every Nicholas Sparks movie that's ever been made. Okay? Because once I lay this out, you're not going to be able to unsee it. Everybody ready to ruin romance movies, all the Hallmark, all that crap? I knew I hated them. This is the reason, by the way, my wife won't let me watch these anymore. She kicks me out of the room, okay? Which is fine. It works with me. I just go play guitar. All right. So, in these, you end up having two roles that work in tandem, okay? I preface this at the beginning by saying, well, one is going to sound better than the other. They're not. They're really not. However, I'm going to write them out, and people are probably going to have an initial reaction. All right. So the two roles that I have seen over and over are the givers and the takers. Now, again, hold your anger or hold your shame, all right? Not one of these is better than the other. But these two people play very important roles in a codependent relationship, okay? Their functions, the functions that they use, enhance the codependent relationship. It keeps it up, but they're also self-serving. They're trying to meet their own needs through the use of codependent relationship. By the way, when you keep hearing all of my exes are, why do I keep going back to watch and learn? So you'll get your price of admission in this. It was free. So. All right. So the givers, some of the markers of them, they aim to sacrifice and support. These are easy to see because, God, this is so much fun. Their partners will say things like, she's my peace. Right? She helps me be everything I need to be. The giver's identity is in, if I provide, if I support, if I enhance, I have value. Now don't get me wrong. Is it a good thing to give to people? Yes, I'm a therapist, right? Not a sociopath, right? It's a good thing to give to people. Yes, outside of this, absolutely. Okay? Now, givers, in what I've seen, they tend to trend towards female, but it's certainly not exclusive. Absolutely not. Okay? Other versions of givers that I see are the white knights. Oh my gosh, you're just so hurt. Let me come in and save you. Oh my God. Right? Drives me nuts. Okay? But here's the thing. Their whole identity is wrapped up in, if I can provide, then I have meaning. If I can give, and if I can get you to see that I am valuable, I have attained worth. Some of y'all got real convicted. Here's the other one. Takers, again, not the worst thing in the world. Their goal is to achieve, and they're very goal-oriented. Okay, so I'm going to use more stereotypes. I know they're stereotypes. I'm not hating on anyone, but it's fun and we all laugh. So, the 35-year-old SoundCloud rapper who still lives in high school, I just need my mixtape to I just need it to hit. I just need somebody to support me. I don't know how to stop drinking on my own. I don't know how to do this without someone to support me. Here's the things that they will say, though, is they have great goals and dreams. 100%. And sometimes they're even able to achieve them. Right? They're able to do these things that they really want to do. The problem is their identity is in achieving. The way that they find value is in being supported to do great things. All right? You see this a lot. This is where more of the conviction comes in college campuses where somebody needs support to do something. Drinking, it's academics, it's family. I went to a Church of God school, okay? All of this crap was here. It was bad, right? I want to start a family and I want to do that. I just want to be able to love someone well. That's not going to last. Okay? The whole ring by spring thing, I don't know if that's a thing here, but sweet baby Jesus, it was there. All right. Here's how this works, though. In givers and takers, generally, how the energy moves is from this one to this one. As long as this dynamic is moving, they're together, right? This will explain, by the way, why really toxic couples stay together. Because of this. You have one, it's like, I just need you to care about me more. Why are you so distant? And this gives the illusion of connection. This gives you that feeling of being close to someone without actually revealing your deep, dark fears. And that's where you see a lot of this, because givers avoid their pain by helping others. Takers avoid their pain by trying to push away from them. In addiction, this is incredibly common. One of the worst cases of this was when I worked in an intensive outpatient program, and I had one of these guys, and all of a sudden he didn't show up for group. Come to find out, his wife, who hated his drinking for 20 years, found him in the parking lot and handed him a fifth of vodka. She was so scared and unable to see outside of this role that she went and enforced it. The same person who told us, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to divorce him, intercepted him in the parking lot and said, do it again. Now those are the most extreme ones, right? But by definition, in my work, addicts are these. Their loved ones that enable them are these. They're the givers, right? Because they hold on way longer than they're supposed to. They've drained your bank account. They've done all of these things. Why are you still with them? Because I love them. Give me a break. You're getting something out of it. I know that sounds really harsh, but it's the truth. Why would you stay someone for all those years unless you were trying to rectify your own pain by helping someone else? Don't give me that crap. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you can't love someone. I'm not saying you can't sacrifice for someone. That's fine, right? But when it becomes about you, that's where there's a problem. And that's where this codependent dynamic balances out. Both of them, it's about me. This one just looks a little nicer than this one, right? Now, here's where I say the intergenerational stuff comes in, okay? People will enact these roles in different ways, okay? In a family system, especially with alcohol and things like that, it's super obvious. So I'm going to draw you what's called a genogram. If you guys haven't heard of this, you'll probably hear it at some point, okay? But a genogram is how we see family systems, okay? So we'll do this, and then let's do an older sister and a younger brother. All right. This is how codependency is developed in families. If you can understand this, you can understand that. Watch how it works in families. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put alcohol here, right? Because I believe it's its whole separate entity, right? You can have an affair with alcohol, by the way. Many spouses will come in and they'll say, I can't deal with it. And I'll say, yeah, your partner's cheating on you with alcohol. And they go, oh, yeah, just switch that with a woman on Facebook, see if it matches. When you guys are stressed, he goes and talks to his ex. When he's alone and he's in with his thoughts, he goes and talks to her. Oof. Right? So we see this in couples. Watch what happens in families, though. And I'm going to draw this with arrows specifically from givers to takers so you can see where the energy goes. Okay? Now, for dad, let's say, obviously it's going to alcohol, right? For mom, it's going to alcohol. Here's the thing, though. These kids are a part of this system. So older sister, we'll say she's the hero child. I need to support dad, and I'm going to pour his alcohol out. The hero child's usually the most likely child to drive their parent to treatment, by the way. So give. Let's say, for instance, that mom has to give here, but let's say she's so drained that she needs to take. Now you've got two children that are giving, right? But here's the interesting part. Let's say he doesn't want a relationship with dad, doesn't care about the drinking, but he supports his mom. I can't tell you how many freaking teenagers, I'm so sick and tired of it, have their parents rely on them to deal with their emotional stuff. I'm so tired of it. But that's exactly what this is. I can't stand your father's drinking. Why are you telling a 10-year-old? What purpose does that serve other than this? That's it. That's all it is, right? I write about this in the book, and I get spicy. If you can't tell, that's just kind of how I do it, right? Here's the thing, though. These children will leave this home. When people flip these roles, I get very interested as a therapist. What shifted? What about your beliefs changed? In this imaginary scenario, let's take this oldest girl right here, and I'm just gonna love everyone. Why? Because that's all she's friggin' known. She just had to give everywhere. So she goes and finds a relationship with the same level of intensity that she grew up with. It might not be alcohol, but it's more likely to be. Let's say, for instance, that the youngest son right here, he goes, screw you guys, I'm gonna be a taker. And here's the thing. He moves from here to here and mirrors his father. He might not be an alcoholic, he's more likely to be. But he becomes the same thing that he hated that entire time. the thing that he swore he would never be, because he was so wrapped up in this codependent dynamic, he ends up being the exact same thing his father was. So, how does this play out? These two leave the home, and then they go to something like, I don't know, college, and they start working on relationships without the supervision of their parents. And because we're so used to things being the same, it's really hard to change. What is likely to happen is they are going to reenact that same dynamic, just with different details. Just because you grew up with an alcoholic father doesn't mean you have to marry one, but it does mean you're likely to be attracted to someone who has that same level of intensity. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, intensity does not mean loud. It just means unresolved emotion. So things can be very intense if I punch a hole in drywall and say nothing. That's very intense. But with that unresolved emotion, these kids play this thing out over and over and over. So for you guys, what does this mean in terms of your relationships and codependency? Go watch The Notebook. So you have the random dude hanging off a freaking, the Ferris wheel, declaring his love, and he needs someone to love and support him. Oh my God. We're drawn to this stuff because it feels good, but it doesn't work. Because instead of intensity, what we need is intimacy. When people get out of this and I start working with them, they have to learn to be still. Slow down. When the two of you have nothing else to do, what is left? The answer is nothing. That's a problem. People who are codependent will find healthy people boring. Oh my gosh, y'all don't do anything. Yeah, it's okay to stay home and just hang out. Hey, my wife and I watch Suits. It's a great show, right? After dealing with other people's problems all day, it's great to watch some drama I don't have to deal with, right? These dynamics, guys, to give you guys some closure in all of this, these break down oftentimes when this one runs out of energy. That's when I see addicts. When the giver goes, I can't do it anymore, and all of their energy has been sapped, and then they're both dead. This one never had it, and this ran out of the stuff they didn't have in the first place. Okay? Healing looks like understanding where you are. I know, by definition, I have a tendency towards being a taker. How do I know that? I'm getting my PhD next year, I have a book coming out next year, and I'm starting a podcast. I know that's my tendency. I get it. I know my tendency for my wife is to be this. How do I know that? We have a separate room in our home, specifically decorated and furnished for foster children that might need to come stay with us. That's her tendency. I don't know how these people find each other. It's friggin' wild. But it's almost like a look can connect people. Oh my gosh, you fell in love in first sight. Nope, you fell in love, you felt an intensity in first sight. Okay? Know where you're at. What it looks like, right? It's okay. I know I have that tendency and I know why. I went back and looked at my family and went, oh, that makes sense. Know where you're at and understand the healthy relationship, the non-codependent one, is the one where the two of you can sit down, you can relay fears, and you can connect without the manipulation to get the other person to make you feel better. When you can sit down and just say, I'm scared. The other person is going, oh my gosh, let me get... No. Slow down and hug them. I hope you start seeing these things. Okay? Some triangles are useful, by the way. When I'm in the Starbucks drive-thru, it's a triangle. I don't care about the person who's taking my order. I mean, I care about them as a human being, but the only reason we have this relationship is because I'm ordering. Okay? My peppermint mocha that I had this morning, yes, that was a triangle. Okay? But I don't want to have them with my wife. I don't want to have them with my daughter. I do my best to not have them with other people in my life. Okay? So, I am going to cut this recording off to be edited out. So the questions you ask from here on out will not be in the website. So, are there any questions, concerns, or negative Yelp reviews that